God can call you to two things, and God calls you to hard things. We planted in the middle of a pandemic, and we planted with a bivocational lead guy. And so we knew, hey, this probably isn't going to look like maybe what we think it might look like. I am Noah Winningham. I've been a Seattle police officer for a little over 8 years, and December 20th of 2020, I launched Sufficient Grace Church as the lead pastor. November of 2013, we started attending Gospel Life Church. And then through that time, I became an elder. And then that's when we started talking about church planting, became convinced that God was leading me to something, to lead the effort. We had a plan to plant in September of 2020, and we had built a relationship with a school. The school said, yeah, absolutely, you can rent our facility. And then obviously everything shuts down. The school says, hey, we have no idea what's going to happen. Maybe you can't meet here. We have no idea. We were trying to think through what that meant for us. And then it was May the 29th. At that point in time for Seattle PD, I was one of the mountain bike police officers. Seattle uses mountain bikes for their crowd management. So I worked a ton of protests. So May 29th of 2020 was Seattle's first protest over the George Floyd death. We were pretty intensely in the riot. Obviously, Seattle and Portland were hit super hard on this side of the country. I didn't have a normal work day until probably August. Probably my shortest days were 14 hours up to like over 20-hour days. I didn't know my days off. And so I went through the riots on a bike. So I was on the front lines of the riot lines of doing it. I still preached at Gospel Life because we were still at Gospel Life. So I was like writing a sermon as I was doing that, but I was mixed in with a lot of stuff. I was getting pretty physically beat up pretty significantly, that I'm still dealing with some injuries that I sustained during that time period. There was a bunch of improvised explosives, a lot of rocks. I got hit by a car pretty good on my bike. So there's a lot of things that I was dealing with, and then just emotionally getting super beat up going through something like that. And so everything was put on hold with the church plant because we didn't know. We didn't know what was happening. We didn't know if we had a place to meet. I didn't know even where I was at emotionally to do things. As we went through this, probably August into September, things started normalizing again for me at work. Protests were spread out. They were not nearly as violent expressions. And so we started normalizing, and then we were able to kind of come back together and start talking about what are we doing for the church? Because we really said, well, do we wait until COVID? So we kept saying that, right? Because at that point in time, everyone's like, well, COVID's going to be over at this point in time. COVID's going to be over here, right? And so we kind of said, well, let's wait until COVID's over. Maybe we really tossed that idea around. It didn't sit right with us because we said, well, no, like people are missing community now. At this point in time, we're 10 months into lockdowns, and Washington, like Oregon, had some of the hardest lockdowns in the nation. And so, I mean, no one is seeing anybody. A lot of people that are now working from home. They're like, people are isolated more than they've ever been in their entire lives. And so the three of us really felt committed, like, no, we need to plant now. We don't know what that looks like. Things are going to be way different, but we were convinced that we have to plant now, which I'm so thankful that we didn't wait until COVID's over, right? We still have lockdowns, right? We still have modified things. So I'm glad we didn't wait for that. December 20th of 2020, we had our public launch. Once a month, we met in person on Sunday nights, and then the rest of the time we met online. We actually did a Zoom call to try to incorporate people and have real interaction with each other. And God was amazing during that. We had people somehow hear about us and would join our Zoom calls without any actual relational connection. We had people find us on the Acts 29 website, and then they would just join our Zoom calls, and we had new people showing up. We saw it. People started showing up and connecting. I don't think I figured it out. Like, I'll have days where I'm like, man, I got this. Like, I feel good. Like, everything, I'm on top of it all. And then I'll have other days where I'm just like, oh my gosh, like, I'm going to put my head into a wall. Like, I quit everything. And it's mirrored back and forth. Probably shouldn't be that honest, but I mean, that's just where I'm at, right? Some days I'm just like, I can't do this. This is way over my head. I feel like I'm drowning. And then other days I'm like, okay, God, I feel like I have a good rhythm. Like, I feel like things are going good. And really that just comes to me and how I'm viewing things. My whole week is pastoring. It just really figuring out what days the context of my pastoring happens in. When I'm at work, everybody knows who I am. I've officiated some weddings because they don't know anyone else who can. It's a very dark world. There's a lot of substance abuse with officers. There's a very high suicide rate with officers, a very high divorce rate, just because guys struggle to process, to see the things that they see, the things that they're exposed to. They struggle to find healthy mechanisms to deal with that. And so they turn to super bad mechanisms. And we see that. And so I didn't want to leave that. I wanted to be in that place to be able to work with guys and process with guys on the force. And so I didn't think God wanted me to leave, but then I really felt like God was calling me to step in and lead this effort for a new gospel expression. And so I struggled not knowing what that meant for me. Everyone I talked to before we planted, there was not much encouragement. There was really a lot of like, it can't be done. Like you can't do these two things. And I think I wanted my story to be out as far as it could, because I want guys who are maybe wrestling. God can call you to two things, and God calls you to hard things. If God is calling you to something and you think that you're going to be able to do it in your own power, I would argue that that's not what God's calling you to do. God calls us to things that are beyond our own power to do, because he wants to come alongside us and he wants to equip, and we want to do something to look back and say the only reason that happened was because of God. I mean, I view this as like Gideon's army getting pared down. So I want guys to see like, well, I think God's calling me to this, but that's obviously too hard. No, it's not. Like if the tomb is empty, then anything is possible. So God can call you to hard things, and God can call you to multiple things. And I think being in tune to that, I want guys who are struggling, not knowing what ministry looks like, that ministry looks like whatever God wants your ministry to look like. Like your ministry doesn't have to look like any other ministry that's ever existed. And when you even look in the old Bible, like Jeremiah and Isaiah, they had tough ministries. Hosea had a terrible ministry. And so when I think my life is hard, like at least I'm not married to a woman who's perpetually unfaithful to me that I have to go chase after, right? That was Hosea's call. So I think that's what I want mostly guys to like hear when they hear my story, that it's okay if it's hard, because that's where God wants you to be. It's not like the colloquial saying, hey, God will never give you more than you can handle. That's exactly what he'll do. Because why would he give you something that you're just like, oh, I got this all on my own? He wants you to rely on him in order for it to happen.